Friday. It's May 9th. It is the 13th day of the Karen Read trial. I think we are getting to the end of the Commonwealth's case. Remember, there are still items of evidence that they discussed yesterday. Numerous pieces, like 20 pieces of taillight that Trooper Proctor recovered alone. How is the Commonwealth going to lay foundation for those pieces of taillight if they choose not to call Trooper Proctor? And well, Karen Read said yesterday in the lunch break of court that she does not think that the Commonwealth will call Trooper Proctor.
Karen, do you think they're going to call Trooper Proctor or not?
Nope.
Will the defense?
TBD.
We will not really know that for sure until we get to the end of the Commonwealth's case because the lawyers are under a gag order. And so the lawyers cannot confirm nor deny whether that's their plan. But the Commonwealth is in a spot with Trooper Proctor. If they don't call him, they've got some evidentiary quirks that they've got to deal with those 14 pieces of taillight, or they don't admit them into evidence. Maybe they just choose not to do the full casing reconstruction. We did multiple days of testing from the crime lab last trial. This Commonwealth strategy has been significantly pared down. They have really narrowed down the witness list. I don't know if they're going to call anyone that actually lives at 34 Fairview. I think they're going to limit it to Jen McCabe. She was inside the house and that's it, which is an interesting strategy. I don't think they're going to revisit inside the house at 34 Fairview. Maybe they will. But I think we're going to see a more robust defense case if we see this very pared down Commonwealth case. It seems that they are trying not to introduce issues, but they did have to bring Trooper Bukhenik onto the stand yesterday. And so maybe they've just introduced enough problems for themselves because even the direct examination did not go well for the Commonwealth. And even if the issue with the right shoe that is supposed to have been collected at the hospital is basically a Scrivener's error, if it was a mislabeling of a bag or a misreading of the labeling of the bag, the defense is arguing that this investigation was not done thoroughly. And you have who is supposed to be the lead investigator, the case agent supervisor, not sure where that piece of evidence came from in front of the jury. And it was a back and forth in front of the jury. And then they had to go to sidebar, and then the jury got sent out for a break. The jury knows exactly why they were sent out for a break because they were sitting in that courtroom the day before when the shoe from 34 Fairview was admitted into evidence. So you don't have two shoes from Fairview. And the defense's argument is that this was not a good investigation. And the jury is seeing it in real time. The thing that clarifies some of those issues of memory or quirks would be, what is that? Writing a report. And we learned yesterday that for numerous items of evidence collected from 34 Fairview from February 2022, they noted it on evidence bags and wrote no other report memorializing it until November 2023. At some point, do you wonder why the defense is arguing that this was not a thorough investigation? Or is there someone out there somewhere that agrees with this trooper on the stand when he says that this was an investigation of honor and integrity over and over and over again? But we're going to get to see how the rest of cross-examination goes. Will they talk more about the evidence collected? Will they talk more about Trooper Proctor? I think there's probably a lot more that is going to be dug into by the defense today. And let's see if this witness starts to answer questions or still wants to cha-cha around the answers with Alan Jackson, who's going to just look at him and say, I can do this all day. So let's go.
I was by myself, so yes, I told the individual what time, what location, the case number, the date, obviously.
How do you know? How do you know that you told the individual to whom you passed this along the time, the location, the date? How do you know that as you sit here?
Because that information was then put on the bag and documented.
But you can't even remember who you talked to.
I do not remember specifically who I talked to, no.
If you can't remember who you talked to, you don't remember what you said. Goes hand in hand, doesn't it?
That's not true. I might not remember now, but the day that it was bagged on February 10th, 2022. I remembered, and that's why the accurate, detailed information is on the bag.
Detailed,
A
you
bag
say?
you didn't fill out, correct?
That's correct.
And information provided to someone you can't remember.
Today, I can't remember, no.
You know what would clear all that up? Say it with me, chat. Reports. This is a whole
You're
training
aware
day
that
in
that
one.
particular bag, that evidence bag, was not booked until March 14th, 2022, correct?
What?
I don't understand what you're saying.
I don't either.
Those
What?
pieces of evidence were never booked into evidence until March 14th, 2022.
Those particular pieces of evidence were collected on February 10th, 2022.
Not the question. Not
Sergeant
the fucking
Bukhenik,
question.
do you know
Not the question.
difference between collecting a piece of evidence and booking it into
Not the
evidence?
question.
Creating a booking label, creating an evidence log, things of that nature? You know the difference?
I understand the difference, yes,
Okay.
but you claiming that it wasn't booked into something doesn't mean that it wasn't properly handled in custody and under our control.
You're
Sure, I'm
trying
not-
to answer not the question he asked. He just asked you when it was booked. You're trying to answer an insinuation. Why are you trying to answer an insinuation? Because you know. You know that waiting a month to book it into secured evidence is a problem.
Can you point to any documentation indicating
Now Jackson's getting
where
pissed.
those items went, whose possession they were in what circumstance between February 10th and March 14th? Can you point to any document?
I know that it was collected on February 10th.
Right.
It's documented that it was collected. It was at the Norfolk District Attorney's office
Where?
before it was logged into.
Was it in somebody's desk drawer with like their Butterfingers and whiskey? Where was it? Did it go into locked evidence? And the fact that you can't say that it went into locked evidence with a log is like the entire problem. Well, not the entire problem. It's the entire problem with this.
the lab for processing.
You keep answering the same question that I'm not asking, sir.
Objection.
Sustained. No comments, Mr. Jackson.
Sergeant Bukhenik, do you understand my question?
Your Honor, he's
I'm
not
asking,
answering.
Can you point to a single document for these jurors as to where those items went and in whose possession they remained, specifically between February 10th, when you lost sight of them, and March 14th, when the crime lab received them?
Objection.
Sustained.
There's purported to be two strings, I'm going to call them strings of texts. Some string text messages between Brian Higgins and John O'Keefe, correct?
Yes.
And some string text messages between Brian Higgins and Karen Read, correct?
Yes.
Would you describe the text messages between Brian Higgins and Karen Read that he presented to you as flirtatious in nature?
Without having recently reviewed them in detail, I don't want to label it something without having
We don't wanna put
complete
labels
understanding
on
of
it.
the content. I'm not comfortable putting a label on something.
Well, how would you describe them? I mean, was it
Did you make a report about it? What did your report say?
with these business texts?
No, these were, friendly communications. I don't want to put a label on it. They were communication between acquaintances or people that know each other. There was text message communication. As far as flirtatious, I would have to take a look at the content of it for certain terms that would support that label.
You're
I
certainly
enjoyed
not
doing-
asking him to read this whole document.
I expect to.
Oh, wait, I need to move. Look, now we can get a sense of how much paper there is. Surely we're not.
You're hot.
Oh, I remember these.
Are you serious or messing with me? No, I'm serious. Feeling is mutual. Is that bad? How long have you thought that? Are you okay driving? You don't want to stay here? I think you're messing with me. Why do you think that? Because this is so out of left field. Where did these feelings come from? I just think you're like me. Meaning, do you have your own kids? I have no kids. How am I like you? Hello? Aren't we alike? I think so.
Do you have kids? Nope.
So why did you get my number and reach out to me? Do you like me? Yes, clearly. Come over to my house. When? When works for you? Whoever, whenever. When works for you?
Whenever.
I asked you first. I think you're messing with me. I'm glad you came over tonight. Me too. Ball's in your court.
What do you want, Karen?
What do you want, Karen? You look great tonight. Are you glad you walked me out? Yes. Are you? Def.
Yes.
Yes. Are you going home tonight or tomorrow a.m.? We kissed, right?
There it is.
Is this a trick question? I don't know when I'm going home. I am selling my house. What a trick question. Are you moving to Canton? I am following your lead with this.
Because you have a
I live here,
boyfriend.
but I have a property in Enfield. Why my lead? I don't want any responsibility. I just think you're like me, and I am attracted to you a lot. Feelings mutual. I just never saw this coming. Why? Because I just assumed you were happy with your situation. I was,
And
but
this
things
is what
have
the prosecution is
deteriorated.
going to argue. That's what the prosecution wants from these texts.
Why? How so? What did Melissa say when you asked for my number? It is very, very complicated. He and I dated when we were kids, and then his sister died, and everything got fucked up. He seemed very into you. Are you breaking up or staying together? I don't know. He hooked up with another girl on vacation. I am very close to his niece. It is a very fucked up situation.
Wow, there's emphasis on that.
I don't want to complicate your situation. We went away for New Year's, the four of us. I put the kids to bed and found him in the lobby of our hotel, all over one of our friends. Whatever. It doesn't matter.
Apparently it does.
It does matter.
Did they bang? Did
they bang?
Yeah, that's the next
Does
question.
that matter?
I mean,
Sorry.
kind
I
of.
was just asking. I was just trying to figure shit out. It doesn't really matter. You asked why I contacted you. Yes. Excuse me. Yeah. I did ask. We are attracted to each other, right?
Do you think
Reasonable
I'm cute?
question.
I
Yes,
think you're
100%.
cute. Do you
Okay.
like me? I like you. But do you really
We
like
did
me?
kiss earlier.
I mean, we
No?
kissed.
I think you initiated that. No?
Yep.
Do I owe you an apology? OMG. No. Why are you being sensitive? I am not. Kinda.
Lies.
No. Excuse me. Never. What do you want from me? What's on the table? I try very hard, but they are very spoiled, and they're not my family.
Oof.
My parents keep telling me I'd feel different if they were mine or my own sisters. Then I told you he got drunk and sloppy on New Year's Eve while we were away, and that has really affected me.
You said it's no big deal. Like 5 texts ago, it was just like, nah, it's not a thing. I mean, I'm mad, but it's not a thing. However, when we get into these texts about her not liking the kids, and we see the other texts where she and John are fighting about the kids, it gives more context to that.
So you have sent me signs before? Did I miss them?
She said you're hot.
John and
Come
I have
over.
had a lot of ups and downs, and we already did this nearly 20 years ago. And there's kids involved that get attached and things get muddy. I don't know what the answer is, but I feel very strongly that I've put my best effort in with all 3 of them, and the extended family too. At some point, it gets frustrating, and my actual feelings take precedence. I get it. I am not denying that, or that it gets tough. Do you remember anything you said to me the other night? I'm just trying to explain where I'm coming from. Yes, John has showed me about 5 times the ring video of me walking you out on Saturday, and my voice and my accent are killing me softly. What?
The prosecution's going to argue this too. And without all the mess around Higgins, the prosecution is going to argue whether or not she might have had access to the ring videos and whether or not the ring videos caught them kissing.
Yeah, he has cameras everywhere.
This is new information to Higgins, by the way, because she walked Higgins out of John's house at One Meadows after the football party and kissed him. I'm not saying John saw them kiss. I'm saying right now, Higgins is like, what the fuck? And John showed her the ring video of me walking you out Saturday and my voice and my accent is killing me softly. So I wonder if John was like, what you doing? Do we know? No.
What?
She wants you to say it's
Yeah,
all good.
he has
And he's
cameras
like, cameras?
You cops. Jesus. He like, Christ, are you guys hooking up? OMG, great. I don't need your drama, dude. No, it's fine. Seriously?
No, it's fine.
I am serious. You legit planted one on me. I know where the cameras are anyway, duh. Oh my God, Bruins. So you slick move. So your slick move isn't on there? Of course not. OMG, I almost park at the top of the street across from the red minivan. LMK when you're here.
Here.
Wednesday, January 19th, 11:13 p.m. Home. Alive?
I don't think we got all the text about her going over to his place last time. I don't remember that at all.
Phone works.
Both
Thought
ways.
you were all set. With talking? No. You sure? Friday, 11:32 p.m. Well.
Saturday 11:54 a.m.
John died.
Ooh, we are not done for the day on day 13. Drew Berby is still on the stand under cross-examination at lunch, and the defense chose to admit all of the texts between Brian Higgins and Karen Read through Trooper B. The judge gave the instructions that she gives before texts come in, and she gave two. One of the instructions that the court gave was these are not being offered to admit the truth of what's being discussed, but to determine whether or not the state police had these texts back and forth and whether or not they knew about these texts. Because on cross-examination, Alan Jackson had been asking, there were flirtatious texts back and forth. And the trooper said, I can't tell you if they're flirtatious texts without the context. There were personal texts back and forth. And I think that came on the heels of Jackson asking, well, they weren't like business texts. And he said, without reading all the texts, I can't characterize them as flirtatious or one way or the other. So then we read all of them. All of the texts with the dates between early mid-January, where Karen Read gets Brian Higgins's phone number and starts hitting him up and texting him, you're hot, want to get a drink. What are we doing? What are you doing? Well, I think you're hot. We're adults. And then there's text in there where Karen is venting about her relationship with John, because Higgins keeps saying, you have a man. I mean, my summary. And she says, it's hard. It's hard with kids. I don't want to have kids. I never wanted to have kids. And now I'm fighting with someone over parenting. And it's a lot and it's difficult. And they are going back and forth and back and forth. Higgins is saying, I don't want any drama. Karen Read tells Higgins about the ring cameras. We hear about Karen Read walking Higgins out of John O'Keefe's place at One Meadows and kissing him and then telling him, John made me watch the ring camera back like 5 times and asked if we were hooking up. And Higgins is like, you can see in the text messages his soul leave his body with, oh my God, did he see? And she's like, no, there's cameras everywhere, but I know where the cameras are. That's not on camera. That being them kissing. They talk about them kissing. He's like, I thought I was going to vomit emoji. And they also had Karen telling Higgins, you know, he hooked up with some girl in Aruba, and Higgins being like, did they bang? And she's like, he was a puddle, which is, I think, vernacular that we will hear her say if they introduce those clips from interviews or from her interview with law enforcement. We might see that come back. So it was a back and forth that the jury has. The defense is going to argue, I think, that, look, why didn't you look into Higgins more? There were these texts back and forth. The last text is John died. That's the very last text to Higgins. So the defense is going to argue, you saw all these texts between them. Why didn't you look into Higgins? And then the other side of that from the prosecution is Karen Read saying their relationship's not good. They're fighting over the kids. She's not happy. I'm not married. We should talk. You should come over. I should meet you there. And I think one of the big takeaways, maybe for the jury, is there's a lot of drinking going on. But now the jury's in on all of the drama, and the jury might not see Brian Higgins testify. Otherwise, I think the court would have made the defense wait until Higgins comes up on the stand, because there's no way this judge is going to let them read all these texts in twice. So I think we might not see Brian Higgins testify in this trial. And I think in those texts that we see, Higgins does not come across as cringy, yes, but as unlikable as he did when he testified. Because the jury has no context for Brian Higgins at this point. They don't know anything about him. They know that there were texts. They know that he's a federal agent. That's all they know at this point. And they see the text back and forth.
Would you consider those text messages, as you reviewed them when you received them from Brian Higgins, as being flirtatious or romantic in nature?
I would not categorize them to that extent. Certain parts.
No, Mr. Jackson. I would categorize those as cringe. I don't know if I would categorize them as romantic. Seriously?
Certain parts of it might be, but the total conversation, if you want my opinion, I can provide you with it.
Was there some flirtation?
Your opinion is totally not relevant to this case, but I kind of want to know.
In the text messages that you noted?
There are terms that I used. You're hot.
Kiss. Talking about
witty,
kissing.
stuff like that. You know, talking about banging and hooking up.
What word would you use to describe them if not flirtatious?
Cringe.
The totality of the conversation?
Sure. Let's start there.
My opinion is that it's a angry girlfriend trying to set up a hookup to her John.
To her jump?
To her John.
To her John.
Yeah.
I would offer the following stipulation: that you coming here text was sent on January 29th at 12:20 a.m. from Brian Higgins to John O'Keefe's phone. Quote, you coming here, 3 question marks following it. What was the time? I'm good. 12:20 a.m.
They're offering the stipulation because it'll be faster. And this witness is like, I can't see the text.
May we enter that stipulation with the court's permission?
Sure.
And
So,
the prosecution's
jurors, you've heard
not
that the
gonna
lawyers
fight.
agree that that fact is true.
The prosecution's not going to
Thank you.
fight. They have John O'Keefe's phone.
Thank you, Sergeant.
It's represented accurately.
Did you seek to secure his actual phone for a forensic download or forensic mirror image to get the actual calls made and received or text messages made and received from his phone?
No, we did not. We had the information that we had. We did not need to get his phone.
And the information that you had came from Brian Higgins himself, not from a forensic extraction, correct?
The extraction that Brian Higgins provided was a forensics extraction of his communications with Mr. O'Keefe and Karen Read. We had Mr. O'Keefe's phone and we had Karen Read's phone, so we can verify and confirm that those text message communications were accurate, unredacted, not deleted, and were true representation of what their communications consisted of.
And that was a representation made by whom?
The totality of it.
That was a representation made by whom? A person made that representation to you that it was fair and accurate. Who made that representation?
It wasn't a person, it was the extractions between the 3 devices.
Well, an extraction that you were handed on a device by someone.
Extraction's different.
No, I said that we had all 3 devices, and as I told Mr. Higgins in our interview together, I said, Brian, We
I said
have those
Brian.
2 devices.
Meaning
If
John's
you,
and Karen's.
correct.
Okay.
If there's anything deleted or altered in any way, we will have proof of it. So please make sure that you understand the magnitude of this situation.
This is new.
Make sure that you understand the magnitude of this situation. We're investigating a homicide. It needs to be accurate.
Please.
And it was.
And you trusted that
Please make sure it's accurate.
rather than simply getting an extraction from his phone. Correct? Yes.
I trusted him, yes, because we trust and verify. And after verifying, the extractions were correct.
I want to change gears again, if I could, and ask you about a dog. You're aware that the Alberts, Nicole Albert, Brian
Sir,
Albert,
you're one of the lead investigators. What is your face doing?
where these veterinary records?
The
This is all
veterinary
new.
records were with the vet that's caring for the dog and also owns the dog now.
Okay.
And those records also had been dated prior to when the dog was owned by the Alberts.
Okay. So,
I mean,
other
that
than
makes
some
sense.
veterinary records that, and by the way, the dog's not even named Chloe, correct?
The new owners renamed the dog, yes.
Cora?
That's correct. Yes.
And the new owners did not get that dog from Brian and Nicole Albert, did they?
No, they did not.
They got it from a separate person. Is that right?
That is correct.
Separate person named Riley?
That's her last name, yes.
And did this person Riley have any records
What?
showing purchase of Chloe? Or
This is not just a name of.
from the Alberts?
This is not just a game of telephone. It's a game of who's that dog.
I'm going to go through a series of questions, Sergeant. If you can answer it yes or no, that might make it go a little faster. You don't have any transfer records, correct?
Nothing's going faster.
I would know what it looks like. That's why it's even quicker me telling you that
I don't know
that's
what a
all the
transfer
records that I
record
have.
is.
Okay. I want an answer to my question. You
Okay.
don't have any transfer records.
He's like, I don't even know what that means.
I don't know what a transfer record would look like, so
So the
I
answer
can't.
is no.
I don't know.
Okay. You don't have any rehoming records.
I don't know.
You don't have any purchase records.
I don't know.
The only records you do have are those 4 pages of veterinary records that don't have the name Cora and don't have the new owner's name.
Yes,
Correct?
that's the point.
That's correct.
But most of the time, it's best practices, and you're taught, and you teach your subordinates, that it's best practices to reduce to writing and memorialize a report.
Close
as
in time.
Close in time to
Yep.
the event in question that's being memorialized as you can, right? Obviously. Perfect world.
In the perfect world, we'd write it as it's happening.
Are you aware that more than 20 official police reports in this case were not recorded for more than 100 days from the time that the event in question was done, was being memorialized?
I did not know the exact date and delay.
Are you aware that there are 11 reports that are more than 300 days from the time of the event that was
Good line of
being
questioning.
memorialized?
I was not aware, no.
Are you aware that there are 3 reports that are more than 400 days
Aren't you the
from the
supervisor?
time of the event that was being memorialized?
I am not aware, no.
Are you aware that there are 4 reports that are more than 500 days from the time of the event that's being memorialized?
I am not aware, no.
Are you aware that the longest delay of any report in this investigation was 581 days?
I am not aware of that, no.
Ooh, buddy.
It is important to interview anyone that's an eyewitness. Sometimes it takes longer because... Are you listening? I'm sorry.
Thanks.
You asked the question. I just wanted to answer.
I know the answers to my own questions. Go ahead.
Okay.
Are you listening? Yes, thanks. Just to make sure you heard the answer. You asked the question. I know the answers to my questions. Sir, he just wants the jury to see you do it. He knows what you're going to do. He just wants the jury to see you do it.
Tell me if that refreshes your recollection as to when.
It's a report
Ricky
from you,
D'Antano
actually.
was actually interviewed.
Shocking.
Yes, this
You wrote
report,
one.
authored by me,
Gold
was
star.
states that on Saturday, September 2nd, he was interviewed.
What year?
2023.
Y'all interviewed Ryan Nagel, February 2022. This happened January 29, 2022. You knew that Ryan was in Ricky's truck, and you texted Proctor in August 2022, hey, maybe interview Ricky. He showed you those texts. February to August of 2022. And Ricky was interviewed when?
Was states that on Saturday, September 2nd, he was interviewed.
What year?
2023.
So that would have been a year and a half later, correct?
Yes.
Do you believe that's a timely report, or rather a timely interview
Nope.
for an eyewitness, the gravity of which is described in the report?
We again, perfect ideal world scenario, it would be quicker.
At the end of week 3, day 13, Sergeant Yuri Bukhenik is still on the stand, still under cross-examination. And part of what made that cross-examination take so much time was the reading in of all of the text messages between Brian Higgins and Karen Read. I think one of the really effective parts of cross-examination this afternoon was going through how long it took to write reports. We are just getting into how long it took to interview witnesses, including the fact that witness Ryan Nagel was interviewed in February 2022, but the other passengers of that truck, Ricky D'Antano's truck, were not interviewed until September of 2023. And Jackson went through. There's more than 20 reports that were written more than 100 days after the thing happened. There are reports that were written 200 days, 300 days, and one that was written more than 500 days after the thing that they're being reported about happened. And then we got into a little bit of testimony about the Albert's rehomed dog, Chole. Turns out it was this sergeant that went to track down Chole. I'm still not certain that the dog that this trooper went to track down is in fact the same dog. I don't know. It was pointed out, I think, well on cross-examination that the vet records that this sergeant procured don't indicate who the new owner is, don't indicate the dog's new name, because apparently the dog has been renamed. And it seems that the new owner did not get Chole from the Alberts, but the Alberts gave Chole to somebody, and then that somebody gave Chole to somebody else. And their information was not in the vet records that were provided. We're going to have to wait and see what happens with the dog that the Commonwealth says is Chole, because I still don't know how they verified that the dog that the Alberts owned is the same dog that they went and found. We need to know if there's going to be testimony that the Commonwealth's expert evaluated the dog. It was a lot of cross-examination. I think there were moments that highlighted how difficult this sergeant was being in answering questions. And at one point, he actually said to Attorney Jackson, "Are you listening? What is even happening?" So Monday, we are going to resume this trial with more cross-examination of this trooper. One thing that is becoming clearer to me is that as this cross-examination goes forward, it seems the defense is planning that the Commonwealth will not be calling Brian Albert or Brian Higgins or Ricky D'Antano or others. And it seems that they are doing everything that they can to get into the information they want about those witnesses through this sergeant who was the lead investigator. And while there are still reports that Karen Read believes that Trooper Proctor won't be called, it's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out, if that is the Commonwealth's strategy to not call Trooper Proctor, because I think it's a landmine for the Commonwealth either way. But they knew that when they decided to retry this case. They knew it was going to be, and they decided to retry the case. I'm just interested to see how they're going to deal with it. Because if you don't call Trooper Proctor, the defense has a great argument of all the witnesses that the Commonwealth didn't present. And if you do call Trooper Proctor, well, then you have the testimony from Trooper Proctor and the text messages and the rest of it. So I'm not sure what the Commonwealth will decide to do, and they may change their mind. I'm going to be real interested to see who the next witness is after this trooper, because there's going to be more testimony. I don't know if we're going to have many more civilians, though, and I don't know if the Commonwealth will choose to call John O'Keefe's niece and nephew. I know that they have to call, at some point, their medical expert, their reconstructionist, maybe the foundational witnesses for who did extractions from Karen Read's vehicle and testing of Karen Read's vehicle. So we'll see. We've got a couple more weeks of trial at a minimum. The court has been telling the jury that they're ahead of schedule and that trial should be full days all next week. So, y'all, it's going to be a real busy May, and I don't think we're going to see many more civilian witnesses in this case. Thanks for joining me. If you enjoyed this episode and don't want to miss updates on your favorite cases, you're going to need the Law Nerd app at lawnerd.app.com. That way you can stay in the loop on the cases that matter most to you, and you never know when you're going to catch feelings for a new case. So make sure you get it for free on iOS and Android. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being a Law Nerd.